Good evening, everyone. We started last time with an inclusive welcome, word. It's a very typical tool in deep democracy, and it's used in a lot of activist groups. It's to set the space and to give everybody a warm welcome. I wrote one for last week. You can read it again in the slides, and I'm gonna read the one I wrote for today. So get yourself settled, and you can listen to the warm welcome for people that are walking in. I put a link to the slides in the Gravity text channel, so I think the last note there is the link to the slides. So you're very welcome to open that in some other screen that you've got going there. All right, here we go. Welcome, everyone. We start with a warm welcome to everyone. So making the time and the space to be here today, a big thank you for that, for making that time. For us, it's evening. For some of you, it's in the morning. For some, in the middle of the day. The session today will be hosted by myself and Jeremy, who is in my screen right next to me. He's waving. A warm welcome to everyone that took part in the last session. A welcome to everyone who did not. Welcome to everyone who felt overwhelmed in the past week, sharing a bit of an emotion there, struggling with too many platforms, not knowing what to do first and feeling a bit paralyzed. Welcome to peaceful minds that master going with the flow. Welcome to efficiency masters, those who master boundaries and focus, and everyone on the way towards that. Welcome to people that feel safe in this community and feel safe working online. Welcome to everyone that feels the benefits of working in online communities. But also welcome to people who struggle finding deep connections in an online space and experience feelings of being disconnected, lonely, frustrated, and sometimes maybe a bit lost. Welcome to the feelings and situations that make you feel less comfortable. Moments where you hesitate to participate for whatever reason. Know that in this space, we welcome all these emotions and every side of you want to show. In silence, by just being there, being present, maybe with words, or maybe you want to use images. Before we start for real, I want to repeat why we are all here together. We take you, Jeremy and me, we put ourselves in that D-Work platform, right, to take you on a journey of a couple of weeks to introduce you to some practical tools inspired by deep democracy and liberating structures. And these tools might help you to include more voices in your meeting, to include more people, build connections that make you feel safe, to take care of yourself and to take care of others, and deal with conflict if needed. We invite you warmly to go with us on this journey towards building stronger communities. Voilà. The Google Doc that we started last week is becoming more or less a bit of a collaborative map, I feel, of this journey that we are taking you on. So I spent some time layouting it, and we very much welcome. I'm going to take notes also, started doing that, and I feel that it might be really nice also for people that missed the session to go and see what we've all been discussing. So let's create this course a little bit together via this Google Doc. Feel free to participate, to add as much as you want to, and show yourself as much as you want to. Voilà. That was my inclusive welcome, very warm. Yeah, I'm sorry. She's my heroine. How do you say that? Margaret Wheatley. She's 75. I adore her so much, and she's written this amazing book, Leadership in the New Science. So I would love to start with a quote from her: "In organizations, real power and energy is generated through relationships. The patterns of relationships and the capacities to form them are more important than tasks, functions, roles, and positions." So she's giving us a little bit of a job there, to make sure that our communities empower good and healthy and satisfying relationships. I'm gonna shut up. Let's start with a check-in. I see that we have 10 people here, more or less. And the check-in question of today, you can fill the sentence. What I wish for, dream of most in an online community is. And I will start while you arrange your thoughts. What I wish for, dream of most in an online community is that it can provide me with as many rewarding and deep connections as real life connections can do. So it's a challenge. Can we also build strong relationships in online communities just as we do? So actually without having a beer or a tea together. That's the thing. Can we do that? And Jeremy, maybe you can go next while people arrange their thoughts.
Thank you, Lean. What I want most in the context of this online community, I notice, is just this quality of being like seen and recognized for so to juxtapose it, right? So seen and recognized. So we're working and hosting this thing with you, but actually it's not that at all that I want to be seen and recognized for, right? I just want to be seen and recognized like as a human being who might help, who might do stuff, but it's mostly just here to have a good time, right? And to have that as be like, yeah, the epitaph of like Jeremy at the TEC. Like he came and showed up to have a really cool fucking time, and just just on that quality to be seen and recognized just for that, so to speak. Anybody else?
Yeah, I was just going to say to have a voice that is, I guess, worthy of being listened to and being heard, as was typed.
Yeah, kind of aligned with that. I would also add, like, use that voice to change the world, the real world, not just keep it into a community world, like online world. Yeah, make those changes in the real world.
Yeah, I also agree with Septi. That what I dream the most in an online community is that it's not only like online and like without link to the real world, but like something that can help to change institutions and something that I dream in an online community, something that makes me feel that I am doing something impactful for humanity.
Thank you. And who's next?
Yeah, I feel similar in that I'm looking to understand how to create structures and organizations that are aligned with my values and with the values of the people that I'm working with. And yeah, how to go from, human scale, human centered um, organizational units that can coordinate and yeah, have a positive impact on the world. Um, yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi everyone. Um, I think the most that I would dream of would be for my online communities to be like old friends. And it doesn't matter if I don't see them for a while, or you drift out of contact, or we have different things, but when we meet again, it just feels easy and like coming home, and there's the security of knowing that whatever happens in our lives, somewhere we'll get back in contact again.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Just openness
Question.
and authenticity.
Those are, I think, true merits one could only carry along to the future. And yeah, I think maybe also by observation, yeah, might be something real.
So I think what I'm looking for is the same as I would look for in my real community, just a place where I can participate in the flow of living wisdom.
Word. Thank you.
Right, so we have a range of impact. I love it. Came back a couple of times to have impact, to be in this space for changing the world a little bit and have impact. Other people look more for friendships and deep connections, and having not really a difference maybe between online and real life, where the flow just continues and the fun is just the same, right? Where you just feel that there's not really a difference anymore. Openness, authenticity, nice ways of showing yourself. Cool. All right, thank you for that. Don't forget, take it with you through the sessions, the answers that you just gave. All right. The topic of today, last week we talked a lot about safety and unsafety in online environments and communities. Today we're going to talk a little bit about, or we're going to touch the topic because we can go very deep on it, sabotage, terrorism, resilience, in resistance in online communities. That's a bit today's topic. Why are we embracing this? Why are we talking about this? Because we want to create, of course, a safe and a brave space where everything that needs to be said can be said. How do we do that? By consciously using a couple of tools. And I will show you in a minute a picture of that, to drop the waterline slowly, to activate and liberate people, and welcome feelings, dreams, roles, multiple personalities, contexts, and the way that we are connected to the outside world, right? And how do we do that, and why? To prevent a lot of sabotage and to make sure that we reach the full potential of the group, that we can work with all the qualities that are in this group, and there's many. So I'd love to zoom in a little bit on slide 26. You can see an image that is used a lot in facilitation trainings. It's an image that is present a lot in these areas, and it's the iceberg. Now, the iceberg is a metaphor for looking at groups. And what we did in the check-in just a couple minutes ago, what we did there is trying to bring more feelings, more ideas, more values, more personalities, more aspects of you above the waterline. So what you see in the iceberg, you see this in an iceberg, right? So you have the top of the iceberg, which is sticking out of the water. And that's what we call what is in the group conscious. It's everything that you see. For example, it's what you can observe. Some people have their screen on, some people don't. Some people use their name. Some people have a pseudonym going. Everybody checked in, so everybody brought a little piece of information into the group conscious, right? We even took notes, so everybody can go and have a look there. That's where the waterline is. Now, under this waterline is so much more, right? The iceberg is a lot bigger under the water than above the water. Under this waterline is our families, if we have just broken up with our partner, if we have kids, if we had to wake up early in the morning, anything, right? Our whole life is under the waterline. Now, what we can do to nurture communities is very slowly, by using the right tools, and that is also a bit of a search for a lot of communities, to slowly sort of drop the waterline, right? And you see below, there is, when you drop the waterline that far, they say that you can use and reach the full wisdom and the full potential of the group. Of course, we know that dropping this waterline might also make sure that we run into, or that we are swimming there, and up there's a shark, there's frustration coming up, there's all kinds of dangerous fish that want to try prevent you and the group from reaching that potential, right? Now, how do we recognize those sharks, right? How do we recognize all these triggers, all these feelings sometimes, all these reactions and behaviors that we have? How do we recognize them in the group? And then, of course, how do we use the right tools to work with them so that we reach the diamonds that are hiding the wisdom and the potential? Now, an image to show these sharks and to show the alarm bells and and dangerous behavior in a group is usually shown in what they call the resistance line, or the terrorist line, or the sabotage line. You can check it. The various theories have different names for it. And maybe we can zoom in a little bit. It's on slide 27 if you're following on the Google slide. And somebody's sharing the screen too. That's great. So if you look at the resistance line, right, you see a bit of the behavior that can show in a group, and that would, like, if you're leading a meeting, or if you're organizing calls, or you're the locomotive of a project, or you are just participating, and suddenly people are making jokes that nobody really likes, or it feels a bit off, or you see that the atmosphere starts to become a little bit sarcastic, and not everybody feels comfortable. Excuses, sorry, I couldn't do it because, or, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot it again. Gossip, also very important. You feel that things are being said outside of the group, not in the group conscious, but outside of the group, and you feel a bit like, what is going on here? If you sense really carefully, you feel like, it feels like I missed conversations. What is going on? Poor communication, breakdowns, people not showing up suddenly, although they promised, and then complete disruption. Walking out angry, slamming the door would be in a real life meeting, or suddenly disappearing, going slow and consciously very disrupting the process, or not delivering on promises. And then, of course, if you go even more in an even more visual space, people might go on a strike. We see that in society, of course, a lot. We see activist group blocking the street, really striking against the system in a very visual way. Another one is burnout, of course. If people burn out, it is very, very often a sign that voices have not been heard, that voices have not been included, and that feelings and frustrations, or whatever was going on, was not taken into account. And then, of course, war and withdrawal, like putting up the fight, can be just a fight in a group, or a conflict that is finally coming out, or just in society, a full frontal war, right? So the jokes are a bit covered, and the war, of course, is really open and out in the open. What can this resistance line mean to us? I think if we are aware of this, now that you know this, you will see tiny signals in the group and say like, I. And of course, you don't have to double check every joke that is being made, but be aware and be in the group and see like, now that's the second time that person is absent. Maybe I should check, like, is everything okay? Can I help? And it can absolutely be the case that it's not something that is in the team. That is right. But taking care of somebody can also mean just sending a message like, hey, what is going on? Can we help you? Can we maybe take over some tasks because you're dealing with something difficult outside or whatever, right? Okay. Are there any questions, just questions about the iceberg and the resistance line without going very much into detail about this?
Yeah, I'd love to know if you see any real differences between virtual communities and in person, because I think like some of those behaviors, like some of those signals, I could see possibly not happening so much in virtual communities, or the other way around being more. What's your experience?
I'm going to give the question to the group. Do you see those behaviors more in online communities or more in offline communities?
I think both. Like like the conflicts come from the human thinking and the individuals, either if they're online or offline. It's the same conflict. I feel like it happened more in online communities because you don't see the other person. Maybe someone is telling you something with good intentions, but since I don't know, it's like a text or like you don't read the intentions, so you might overthink some stuff, and yeah. But I feel like it's in both sides. But I feel it's stronger on online communities.
Stronger in online.
Maybe I didn't communicate my question very well. My interest was, of those behaviours that you've noted there in the resistance line, are any of those in your experience like more noted in virtual communities, or are some of them more likely to happen? Because I just feels like all of those, some of those would be quite, I can't imagine like strike, it would be hard to have a virtual strike, right? That's likely to only happen in person. So that was the question.
Yeah, I can maybe share one experience, but I'm happy to open the floor as well to others. I think for me, it's harder to communicate in virtual communities, whereas in a real life office or where you meet people, you actually see that they are very busy or right. So there is more of an awareness about where people are, right? It's hard to ping people, or I always feel a bit withdrawn, and then I don't know what is going on, right? I think it's more so if the person on the other side is slowing down, less responsive, then I don't know what's going on. So I think the resistance line is playing up there a little bit more. Yeah.
And building on that, I might point to the particular aspects of this resistance line that are really obviously much easier in online environments. Like in this call, like withdrawing is super easy, right? In any online environment, even though it's quite an extreme behavior in terms of resistance, it's so fucking easy to do, right? All you got to do is just turn off your camera, mute, and like fuck this shit, you know? I don't have to bring in any of my frustration. I don't have to deal with any of the consequences of that frustration. I can just dump all that information underneath the waterline. I'm clearly aware of it, and I'm jumping on a soapbox, so hold me back if I'm going too far. One of the hallmarks about information above the waterline is that everybody knows, right? The hallmark of information under the waterline is that some people may know and other people will not, right? So there's wherever we're getting into information asymmetry, then we're sort of underneath the waterline. And if I can just turn off my webcam, mute myself, and check out mentally, that's a very low cost behavior. Whereas in a physical space, like somebody to be like really checked out with their attention somewhere elsewhere would have a very visible consequence. So that one's way more accessible to everybody. And I know I'm absolutely certain that everybody on this call has been in that space of like, this is not going the way I want, and I don't know how to influence it. So fuck it, and I'll just sort of like, I'll phone it in, so to speak. I'll pretend to be present. Um, so that one I notice is way more available, and that also points to this different direction, that even though the sabotage line sort of increases in intensity, people's triggered states will take different directions. Some people's triggered state, like when I really get into some shit, I get verbally aggressive and loud, and we'll start to like actually beef, so I'll puff up and I'll make myself much more visible. Shocking, but true. Whereas some people are much more comfortable, their triggered state is actually to check out and withdraw much more. Right? So even though that's not sort of explicitly on this line, like just understand that everybody has a different version of the way they like to express their no. Anybody else?
Yeah, I wanted to comment something and to make a question. Like, yeah, I also think that this resistance line.
I think that's really interesting as an insight, because it feels to me like looking at this line that the reality of interacting with it in a virtual community than my experiences in normal communities, they're very, very different. And like you say, like I think things like communication breakdown can happen in a really different way virtually than it does. In fact, I think there's such a higher propensity of miscommunication virtually that it almost becomes a norm. Whereas I think it'd be quite hard sometimes to flag that as a potential sign that there's some kind of bigger picture thing happening. So it'd be very interesting to perhaps, I'm not trying to take over your session, Lee, but no, it'd be really interesting to hold up the differences of these behaviours on this line and how differently that can occur, like online and in person, and the kind of implications of those.
Juan, I think you were. Thank you, Anna Marie. By the way, I think Juan, you were saying something too, right?
Yeah, I wanted to say that something that I have seen in the resistance line in online communities is like people typing um, like the first thing that comes to their mind, and sometimes like typing really hot minded, and not really reading what they wrote before sending, because that could help a lot of prevention, and even they recognizing where is the waterline. But I wanted to ask, um, you were talking about sabotage. For me, it's very interesting, and I would like to ask, how can we identify if the sabotage is being an internal sabotage, meaning like myself sabotaging me, or an external sabotage where like other is sabotaging me? How can you not notice that?
Hmm.
I just want to the article you sent me about the Ethereum hard fork, where they kind of went through and broke it all out. One of the things that you'll notice is that the person who was dealing with that seemed to signal to folks that there was a problem a long time before then they just decided, well, I'm going to take advantage of that problem now. You know what I'm saying? If no one's listening to me. So um, so I think there's a kind of especially when you have somebody who's really opinionated, you know. So uh, you know, if you believe you're right, or there's a bit of, you know, internal like narcissism or whatever, or covert narcissism, you know, that you're not owning up to. If you're lying to yourself, then you're not necessarily lying to everyone else on purpose, but but it happens anyway, right? So that, you know, the it's the denial that's the problem, right? It's the denial that lengthens out the ability to learn lessons. It's the denial that does all of those things, right? That's true personally. It's also true organizationally. So I think being able to see how those things roll up and how they connect, and I think in many ways my general function here is to try to show the similarities between the organizational and the personal, you know, and so that's, I guess, my answer to it. And yeah, it's just self-knowledge, and then seeing, when you have self-knowledge, then you can see the things that you were working on internally in these other structures.
Thank you, Durgatus. One thing that jumps out in sort of the framing of your question, Juan, is where we're sort of considering sabotage, and I would say the sabotage is less of an explicitly interpersonal, like you to me dynamic, but it has more to do with the field that the group operates in, right? So it may be me in that field as a part and a generator of that field, sabotaging the field for myself and for other people, and it has a lot to do with that facet that Durgatus mentioned about around the denial, right? So it's mostly the denial of my frustration and irritation, all of these challenging emotions. I don't want to sort of put those out in this explicit and very vulnerable way, right? For me to say, "Hey guys, this is not going the way I want, and I don't know what to do about it," actually puts me in a terrifically vulnerable space where I don't know if that's going to land with you. I don't know if we actually have the skills to intervene in it, right? I just, man, it's so much safer for me to go, you know what? Mute, webcam off. Let me just, fuck it. I don't care. Than it is to actually bring that information into the collective awareness of what's going on and to reveal my internal state. Anybody else?
Maybe I'm just taking the metaphor too literally about the iceberg, but I'm wondering, like, when I think about the iceberg, the amount that's under the waterline, I'm like, well, they're supposed to have the majority under the waterline, otherwise they wouldn't be buoyant. And I'm wondering if that carries over in this, like that there's an appropriateness of what we're bringing to the group and what we're sharing with people, and the reason that there is a certain aspect that's presented, not that we're being inauthentic, but like what is the aspect of ourselves that we need to be focalizing to be able to bring that to the group and show up in the role that we need to show up in.
Yeah, I want to comment on that. And I totally agree that there should be at least some water line that can be like commonly understood or easily recognized, because otherwise we will get into like everything is okay, and there are some things that can affect the community, like for an example, um, having these Discord servers, they are like a workplace and a meet place, and like if there are not safe for work content in this Discord, I feel that's like the water line that we can all agree on to not mix like um, um, what are the like we all have individual water lines, but we can all agree to in social water lines in certain contexts. So maybe there would be a forum where we can discuss or talk about our sexual preferences, and maybe there that is something that is visible and above the waterline. But here in this Discord, um, like we have to draw a waterline there because maybe we don't know which are like the bad things that we have inside of us, but if we can agree on what can be shared, maybe we can have like more things in common. And I say this because once I mediated in a conflict where this happened. Like there was a community in a Discord, and they were working, and then they created. They said, okay, we are radically open source, and we don't want to have rules. And then they opened an not safe for work channel in their Discord, and somehow that brought a lot of conflict into the organization because then people were not talking about the things that they had in common in the organization, but they were also focusing in other things that maybe brought into light some things that that were not good to be so above the waterline in a workspace. I don't know if I made myself like explain, but it's like there's a place and a time for everything, and if we cannot agree on which will be the place for each thing, maybe we can bring things that are not suitable for certain places. So it's like trying to draw this waterline is it's really important for what do you want the behavior and the communication to be around.
Thanks, Juan Carlos. I think I definitely dig into this sensation that it's hard to figure out what. Um, yeah, it is both hard and extraordinarily easy at the same time to figure out what's salient and relevant for where we are as a group.
I'd like to just make an observation on this resistance line. Is that it almost feels like that it should be a circle instead of a line. Because a lot of these will feed back in. Like if you get to a strike, well, that can lead to jokes, maybe gossip, and then it's like it's almost like a self-feeding process, so to speak.
Can I speak to that real quick with a screen share?
Yeah, and speaking of salience and relevance, we'll have to be cognizant of the time if we're gonna get a chance to practice with the structure for this week.
Yeah, sorry. I was just thinking about the line that Betty Martin talked about being this consent line, perhaps, you know, in the sense that, you know, there are certainly more involved things there, but I immediately went to, okay, if it's a circle, this circle might be actually, you know, in or outside of consent, you know. So it was just an idea that I popped into my head and seemed relevant, and I thought I'd share it.
Thank you. There's definitely a relevant, an extraordinarily relevant relationship between consent and sabotage, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And what I heard a lot also in Juan's talk was setting boundaries. and doing that dance with each other and talking about boundaries in a workspace and going very often into the discussion and into the conversation, like what is this workspace about, what is allowed here, what are our rules, and talk about them and not leave them unspoken, because that can of course also create extra conflict. You need to talk about it and bring it out in the open and be clear about the boundaries and the expectations that you have in a certain space. And that will also sort of, you put the waterline with the group together. You cannot expect that everybody knows where your boundaries are, and engage in a conversation about that. Yes. Jeremy, I'm looking at you a little bit. Do we still have the time for the exercise we prepared, or?
It is pushing it.
Okay.
So I would say that we're right on the bubble. So it'll definitely create some time pressure if we wanted to try with helping heuristics. Is there anybody who has information about in the group that could help us make this decision?
So a decision on whether we are going to proceed with the helping heuristics exercise, which takes 20 minutes?
Yeah, I think the structure itself is 15 to 20 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So do we still want to dive into that, or which is it's about the same topic? Yeah? It's just a little bit of a reflective exercise on that topic.
I don't have any conflicts after.
Yeah.
That helps.
All right.
No conflict.
No conflict. Cool. That would mean that we would stop at around 9:05 or 9:10 at the latest.
I'll have to stop at the hour, but I'd love to get started anyways.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, around this question or this topic of sabotage, what we want to do is actually, well, first let me go through the structure itself, and then we can talk a little bit about this specific invitation. So helping heuristics is a give and get help pattern that you can find on slide 31. There's a visual overview. The nuts and bolts of it is that we form trios, so 3 people per group, and we jump into one of 3 different roles. We have somebody who takes the role of the client, who has some form of topic that they want coaching on. There's the coach, and there's a third person there as an observer. And we then follow these 4 steps, or these helping heuristics, to sort of guide how the coaching conversation flows. The first increment of time, which is 3 minutes in this instance, goes by the helping heuristic quiet presence. So the coach basically shuts up and just absorbs and is attentive to the story of the client. There is the whole intention is just around listening and being present to what the client has to offer. The second increment of time goes by the helping heuristic of guided discovery. And this is where the coach is going to lean in with questions to help inquire about different aspects of the coach's challenge to sort of uncover and reveal additional information. The third increment of time, again 3 minutes for all of these, goes by the helping heuristic of loving provocation. So remember, we're here to support one another in this giving and getting help pattern, and yet we're also here to take on the empowerment dynamic role of challenger as well. So how can you interject some advice, some difference of opinion, cut off some trains of thought that might actually provide a different sense of boundaries and foreground different opportunities for your client. And then the fourth helping heuristic is process mindfulness, where both the client and the coach sort of actively engage in a much more, what I would say is a more neutral dialogue, right? Coaching and client has this tendency of having a little bit of distance between the coach and the client in some ways. And what we're trying to do is just sort of get back together on the same level and discuss about, the conversation and what sort of jumped out according to that flow. And so each one of these steps is 3 minutes in length. 3 times 4 is 12 minutes. And at that point, after that 12 minutes, the observer would come back in and debrief with the coach and client and share their observations and findings together with the coach and client for about 5 minutes. So like I said, the structure runs about 20 minutes in length for one coaching conversation. Traditionally, we would love to get into trios and actually run through this pattern so everybody has a chance to occupy all 3 of these roles. That's the sort of best case scenario so that everybody can have a chance to both give help, be present to help, being given, and be helped. So that's the pattern of these helping heuristics. Does anybody have questions about the general pattern and how the steps go?
I have a question.
Mhm.
Like when we are in the activity, are we supposed to talk about our own things, or is there some um like base of um of examples that we can take?
Yeah, we'll be talking about our own challenge, a challenge that is personal to us.
Okay. Perfect.
Any other questions about the general nuts and bolts? All right. So for those of you that, so the first time I did this exercise, I sort of freaked out. I was like, coaching? I'm not a coach. I don't know how to coach. What the fuck does that mean? So for those of you who may relate to that extensive experience, I want to offer you guys some very, very extraordinarily simple, what I call dime store or Jedi coaching tools that you can make use of that will work shockingly good with no skill whatsoever. So in the guided discovery portion of the helping heuristic, give a try to these 2 particular questions to help uncover more information with your client. And that is, what kind of X is that X? And is there anything else about that X? So whatever you key in as being particularly salient or relevant, hey, describe what kind of thing is that thing that you just said yourself, dear coach, dear client. And then, ask the question, is there anything else about that salient piece of thing that you're just described? With these 2 questions, you can create extraordinary value. If you want to go further with this line of inquiry that is a whole method in and of itself called clean questions, in loving provocation, there's 3 additional questions. What would you like to have happen? What needs to happen for X? And where could X come from? With these 5 questions, you will find yourself actually leading people through extraordinary and good coaching conversations, like I said, with very little skill required. So give them a try if you want to. If you have a feel for coaching, then obviously go your own way. And Juan Carlos, in our particular invitation or the topic that we are going to invite into this helping heuristics pattern is around this invitation. So think about the last time that you were triggered in a meeting setting, whether it's online or offline or otherwise. So what was the thing that you had some form of no to, like that you didn't like the way it was going? And what was in it? What were the parts of it? And did your information stay under the waterline? Probably yes. And how did it sort of manifest itself thinking about this resistance line? Did you puff up? And was there some form of visible conflict? Was there some sarcasm or jokes? Or, did you withdraw and sort of shrink back from that conflict? So this is the topic we would like to invite guys to bring into helping heuristics this giving and getting help coaching pattern. And so I would suggest that everybody just takes a minute or two to think about their own case, whether they want to bring a case into the helping heuristics pattern. And while we're doing that, let's dream up of how we might split up some subgroups.
I guess because I can't be here for the full cycle, I should probably just hop off. But I appreciate the description and I appreciate everyone's time. I think it's really stoked about this Gravitas working group.
Thanks for showing up. Sure.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. See you.
Yeah,
Let's see.
I'm actually in the same boat. Like I have a hard stop at 9. So yeah, I feel I cannot commit to the full exercise.
Thanks, Septi.